Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at the weekend of March the 8th and 9th, 2025. And probably the most important aspect this weekend is a trine between the Sun in Pisces and Mars in Cancer. It's a high energy aspect, though it is in water sign, so maybe it's not quite as high energy as it would be if it were to be in fire signs, but it's still something that we need to take note of. And in this video, I'm going to be considering what this Sun trine Mars might mean, and I'm going to give some examples of how it worked in the past. But before I take a detailed approach at the Sun Mars trine, I want to consider the astrology and the I Ching for the weekend. Don't forget, if you like the video, feel free to press the like button, wherever that is. If you're not subscribed, I would really be happy for you to subscribe, but apparently it makes all the difference. Anyway, so let's look at what is happening this weekend. So here is the chart for midnight on Sunday, the middle of the weekend, set for New York, and the moon, as you can see, is in Cancer, 20 degrees Cancer. So really, the whole weekend pretty much, the moon is in this sign, and the moon does make quite a lot of aspects in Cancer. So, on Saturday we see the moon making a square to Mercury, right at the beginning of a weekend. In a way, that's what the weekend kicks off with. Moon in Cancer, square Mercury in Aries. That it's quite a verbal aspect. We say what's on our mind. Certain things might upset us, and we might think that we have to say something, or there could be a little bit of agitation with that moon square Mercury. Then on Sunday we've got a load of lunar aspects. We've got moon conjunct Mars. You can see this. Okay, in New York it's sort of late on Saturday, but the weekend to an extent is described by that Moon Mars conjunction. It is an angry aspect, and it makes people a little bit touchy. So we've got over moon square Mercury, then moon moves on, and makes that conjunction to Mars, and people may be very insistent that they are in the right and they want to be taken seriously. So how much of a problem is it? Well, the moon, having made the conjunction to Mars, does make a trine to the Sun, and maybe that makes things a little bit easier, because moon trine Sun allows one to smooth things over a little bit. When I talk about moon trine Sun and other favourable aspects between the Sun and the moon, in particular the sextile, I often think of harmony, because the lights, the two brightest bodies in the sky are in harmonious aspect, and so that maybe allows us to get on with each other, even if we do have disagreements. And then the moon, having made that trine to the Sun, moves on to make a trine to Saturn, and that moon trine Saturn is possibly quite a stabilizing influence. And then moon moves into late Cancer, and then London time 22:59 on Sunday evening. That's 10:59 p.m. Around sort of 11 o'clock in the evening on Sunday. The moon moves into Leo. So if you're in Europe, right at the end of a weekend, you get this sign change. You possibly won't feel it. It's just maybe just too late for it to have an impact, and you might have to wait until Monday to get the full blast of moon in Leo. Now, if you are in the Americas, then On Sunday, late in the afternoon, there is this sign change, and all of a sudden, there's more fire in the chart. Mercury and Venus are already in Aries, and then the moon moves into Leo. So there's more excitement, more energy, maybe more of a spark when the moon moves into Leo. So you might get that change in the Americas, late on Sunday, and in general, that probably make things more exciting, and it might be easier to make connections. Now, the main aspect of the weekend is actually the Sun trine Mars. Now, the Sun trine Mars, this aspect, at the end of a video, I'm going to go into this aspect in detail, but it is a high energy aspect. Sun in Pisces, trine Mars in Cancer, and I think that if you're in the Americas, actually the Sun trine Mars is on Friday. I think late on Friday evening, but still it does mark the weekend, and it does give us an idea that the weekend, it could be high energy. Now, Sun trine Mars, it sounds good, and it may well be that we can get a lot done, but at the same time, Sun trine Mars can be quite a violent pairing. Sun and Mars, masculine planets, they like to get their way, and with the Sun making a trine to Mars, it's just so easy to make things happen, to assert oneself. It may be too easy. You give things a slight push, and then things really start moving. And in certain cases, Sun trine Mars can favour acts of violence and doing things that are pretty unpleasant. So the Sun trine Mars needs to be treated with a certain amount of caution, and it is in water signs, and water signs could be about bad actions planned behind the scenes without much warning. They are executed quietly, but the results can be devastating. So that's one way of looking at Sun trine Mars. Though if it's something you want to organise, get together, and you want to be quick and assertive about it with this Sun trine Mars, I think you can do it. Though because it's in water signs, a bit of subtlety wouldn't go amiss. Now, there is another aspect going on, and that is Sun semisquare Pluto. So the Sun is aspecting two bodies, making a trine to Mars, and it is also making a semisquare to Pluto. Now, you could say, if you're into harmonics, that Sun, Mars, and Pluto are making a 24th harmonic conjunction. I'll talk about that at the end of a video, but it does mean that Sun, Mars, and Pluto are coming together at a certain level. In this case, it's a 24th harmonic thing, and you maybe can see this. You can see the work of the 15-degree aspect. If you look at the Sun and Mars, they're both at 18. They're both at 18. Sun at 18 Pisces, Mars at 18 Cancer. So you take 15 off 18. So what's 18 minus 15? That's 3, and that takes you to Pluto, which is at 3 degrees Aquarius. So when you see that, you've got a hint there that you've got a micro aspect going on. And I do think that this way in which the Sun, Mars, and Pluto are bound together could actually be quite dramatic, and it might be about the quest to make an impact. But I'll be looking at that in detail, or in more detail at least, later in the video. So that's a picture for the weekend set for New York. We could look at the picture from the viewpoint of Sydney, Australia. So here's a chart for noon in Sydney as a representative of Australia, New Zealand, East Asia. The chart isn't so different. The moon is just a little bit earlier, so at midnight, as Saturday turns to Sunday, the moon is at 11 degrees Cancer, moving towards that conjunction of Mars. That conjunction of Mars is probably going to be exact around noon. I know there's a bit of a time zone difference between Australia and New Zealand, but approximately. So, in general, Sunday is going to be a more active day than Saturday, I think. But I don't think there's a huge difference between Australasia and the rest of the world. And then there is the heliocentric picture. So here it is, and in this heliocentric chart, I do want to concentrate on two midpoint configurations, and one of these represents Neptune. Well, there is Neptune. So there is Neptune, there is Uranus, and there is Pluto, and there's the Earth in the middle. Sorry, the Sun in the middle. So this is a heliocentric chart, Sun in the middle of the solar system. And we have Neptune on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint. And it's not just about this weekend. This is an aspect that it has been sort of forming for some time. And maybe we need to start to think about it. And it could be quite subtle. But, Uranus-Pluto represents the desire for change. A lot of us want change. We feel that things have gone so far, we've had enough and we're ready to turn over a new leaf, and we might want to do it in a dramatic way. But then we've got Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint. So with Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint, we might initiate change, maybe even quite dramatic change, but not quite know where it's going. And that might be something that's happening in the world. There is a lot of change. There's change in Europe. We've got Donald Trump doing all sorts of things in the US. Love him or hate him, love or hate what he's doing. Still, there's no doubt that he is doing things. Uranus-Pluto. He wants to transform the United States, but does he know where it's going? Do any of us know where we're going? And that might be an issue with Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint. It's quite a high-level aspect, and we might see something quite spiritual about it, and fated, in the sense that the world is moving in a particular direction. None of us know for sure where it really is going. I can try with my astrology, but I'm going to be of fairly a limited success. Now, this Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint, I thought it might be an idea to give an objective view. What does Alfred Witter say about Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint, to give us an idea? What he says, Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint, he writes that sudden commencing of development which cannot be judged as to duration, direction, and process, the step into the unknown. And I do think that is quite descriptive about what is happening at the moment. Things are happening quickly, but we don't really know where it's going. And we have ideas. Going back to the United States, Donald Trump is doing all sorts of things, and there's a lot of negativity, and there's a lot of positivity. But do we really know where it's all going to lead? Does Donald Trump know where it's going to lead? No, he doesn't. Does that mean it's going to lead to disaster? I don't know. This is Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto conjunction. Neptune on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint. We just don't know. And another midpoint what we have is Pluto on the Venus-Jupiter Pluto on the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. So there's Venus and there's Jupiter, and heliocentrically Pluto is making the midpoint aspect there. Now that's a much more sort of short-lived aspect, and it involves Venus and Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter are a fairly positive pair, and Pluto on a Venus-Jupiter midpoint may be quite simple. It may be about the desire to enjoy oneself. People really want to have fun in a Pluto way, in a way that is very intense and powerful, and not very light at all. I am determined to enjoy myself, and nothing is going to stop me. I'm obsessed about it. That could be dangerous, I think, if one is going to just throw everything into having fun. One might take risks, one might spend money, one might do things that are unwise, but is it personal? Or is it just an observation about the way people are behaving? Anyway, those are a couple of observations about the heliocentric picture, and I now want to consider the weekend from the viewpoint of the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for the weekend of March the 8th and the 9th, 2025. Aries. Aries, your ruler is Mars, and Mars is really in the spotlight this weekend because there is a trine aspect between the Sun and Mars, and this certainly gives you a lot of energy and you want to get things done, but the key thing is to work out how you are going to utilize this energy. This is a Sun in Pisces and Moon in Cancer. It is not about getting a lot of attention or asserting yourself in ways that are dramatic. That's not a good idea. If you try too hard to get attention of this Sun trine Mars, things could get out of control very quickly. You have a lot of power, but this power could get distorted very, very quickly, and you might not know how to stop it. So, with this Sun trine Mars, Aries, I would recommend that you do show a certain amount of subtlety. You don't have to get a lot of attention, and instead, Aries, think about what exactly you're trying to achieve. It is a weekend. Can you achieve a great deal over the weekend? And if you are going to achieve anything, then it maybe should be done in quite a secretive way. You do not have to announce yourself, advertise your intentions. You don't need an audience. In fact, Aries, you can just do things in your own way, a way that might be dramatic. But when we think about drama, we often think about an audience, people being shocked, but that's not always the case. You can do things privately and also do things with power and really be able to sort of see it through. And I think, Aries, in many ways, the less you say about what you're doing over the weekend, the better for yourself and indeed the better for everyone, because it's just so easy to get angry. And it's not just the fact that we've got Sun trine Mars, we've also got the Moon making a conjunction to Mars. The Moon is also making a trine to the Sun, and it's making a trine to Saturn, and that trine to a Saturn might allow you to control things, to accept that you do have a lot of power, but also to accept, Aries, that you actually have a lot of responsibility, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't cause complete chaos and disruption. And maybe also, Aries, you should try to think about things from a sort of a higher level. Don't ignore the spiritual aspects of things. Looking at things at a distance, and not feeling that you always have to make an impact on the material world. That's probably not something you should be too concerned about, particularly this weekend. There are no planets in Earth signs unless you count Uranus. So, think about the sublime, things which go beyond the material. And if you put your effort into spiritual pursuits and spiritual accomplishments, then I think that you're going to feel a sense of quiet satisfaction, and maybe think about some of your more unusual talents. For example, it may have something to do with psychic stuff if you're into tarot cards, or like I do, with the I Ching, or maybe astrology. These are good ways to be using the weekend, and you are able to tune into what you can do, and what you can do can be a reflection of something beyond yourself, and something that is quite spiritual, and that would go some way towards mellowing you out. And so perhaps, Aries, a lot of what this weekend is about is finding a constructive way of using your energy, and getting the balance right, and not being too focused on other people and feeling that you have to play before an audience, because it's just quite possible that if you want to really have a great weekend, the only person that matters is you. Taurus, there is quite a lot happening this weekend. As we know, there's a trine between the Sun and Mars, and this trine between the Sun and Mars could be quite fun. It could be quite sociable. So if you are socializing, meeting people with the Sun trine Mars, I think that there's a chance that you can really have a good time and enjoy people's company. And when people get together, there is a lot of energy because of that Sun trine Mars, and you will have lots to talk about. Though, do realize that people have strong feelings, and it could be quite easy to offend people because there is that Sun trine Mars. There's also Moon conjunct Mars, and that Moon conjunct Mars can again be angry, and it can be defensive. And the question is, where is that anger? Is that anger in you, or is it anger in other people? You might say something that goes down the wrong way, and in fact, where there are words, there is a problem, or there could be a problem. And it may be that you just say things that are a little bit harsh, or you start talking about subjects that are not appropriate. People don't want to hear. I mean, you might find them interesting, you might find them exciting, but other people might find them repulsive, maybe, or certainly offensive. So Taurus, do be careful what you say, and if in doubt, it's probably a good idea not to say it, and instead just enjoy people's company without necessarily feeling that you actually have to do anything, because it can be a weekend of enjoyment. We looked at the heliocentric picture, and we saw that heliocentrically Pluto was opposition to Venus-Jupiter midpoint, and that aspect can be about the great desire to have fun. at any cost. Well, it shouldn't be at any cost. So you need to have a certain sense of perspective there. You can't enjoy yourself at any price, because in the end that price could actually be too high. And instead you have to understand your limits, and you have to explain perhaps to other people what the limits are. The moon does make a trine to Saturn, and with moon trine Saturn, you're able to control your immediate environment. And if you make an effort to calm things down, then I think that people will listen to you. And of course, in terms of calming things down, it's important to be careful what you say. You don't want to pour petrol, pour gasoline onto the fire. Very easy to do that if you say the wrong things. Remembering there is this Sun trine Mars, which could be a little bit volatile, and your job is to reduce that volatility and to be a calming influence. And I do think that is something you can do. Gemini, there are things going on. Not so much in Gemini, your sign, but more in Pisces. Pisces is in a way quite a busy sign this weekend, and that is relevant to you because Pisces is angular. It's at the top of the chart. It can be about your ambitions and what you want to achieve. And I know it's a weekend, but just because it's a weekend doesn't mean that you necessarily have to slack off. And there are things you want to do, and there are things you want to accomplish, and you may be taking things quite seriously, more seriously than usual, more seriously perhaps than you usually do over the weekend. And in terms of what kind of aspects we've got, well, one aspect that is starting to form is a conjunction between the Sun and Saturn. So, the Sun is at 18 Pisces, Saturn is at 21 Pisces. So, early next week there is an exact Sun-Saturn conjunction, but it's close enough now for you to be feeling it. And this Sun-Saturn conjunction is starting to make you quite serious, and you want to get things done. And the Sun is, as we know, is making a trine to Mars, and Mars is actually making a trine to Saturn. That Mars trine Saturn is going to be a feature of next week. And so when you put Sun, Mars and Saturn together, we might get the idea of Gemini being very focused. There are things you want to accomplish, and you are maybe thinking about the material. It could be money. It could be business, it could be a job, it could be something to do with your status or lack of status, and feeling you want to do something to elevate yourself, and you want to do it properly. And there might even be a somewhat uncharacteristic lack of humour there, because it matters. And so there's nothing trivial about Geminis this weekend, and you are very aware of how much power you have. And if you think about it, you have the ability to influence people, you have the ability to get noticed, and getting your timing right is important, and the place right as well. There is always a time and a place for doing something, and you have to get that time and the place right, otherwise it just looks ridiculous. But if you get it right, then I think that you can actually assert yourself in quite a powerful way. And so other people might want to enjoy themselves, they might want to have a fun weekend, they might want to shelve their ambitions, but Gemini, not you. I just think that you have got something to do, and you probably shouldn't waste any more time listening to me. You should probably just get on and do it. Cancer. Cancer, there's a lot of activity affecting the sign Cancer, because we have the moon in Cancer, we have Mars in Cancer, we have a moon-Mars conjunction in Cancer, and the moon in Cancer is making a trine to the Sun, and it's making a trine to Saturn, and there's also a Sun-Mars trine, so we've got Sun in Pisces, trine Mars in Cancer, so you really are at the center of things, and you potentially have a lot to do, and potentially there's a great deal that you can accomplish. And so Cancer, I would recommend that you do whatever you can to make the most of the weekend. It's not a weekend where you want to be doing nothing. It's a weekend for elevating yourself. You can assert yourself, and if you feel that in the past people hadn't taken you sufficiently seriously, then now is a time to make up for lost time. The things that you say and do will be noticed, and that Sun trine Mars aspect, which is the main aspect of the weekend. It's, if you like, the headline aspect, because later in the video I'll be going into this Sun trine Mars in detail. This Sun trine Mars, it really energizes you, and it allows you to to get what you want. And then the moon is involved in it. We've got the moon conjunct Mars, and so think, Cancer, what actually do you want to do this weekend, and what message do you want to put out? Because you can do it. You can really make things happen, and it's not just about stirring things up and creating great clouds of dust which eventually blow away. You can actually stir things up and then, if you like, set them, make them more permanent. So you make a change, everything goes up in the air, and then you say, well, this is how you want it to be. And you can force people, if need be, to take you seriously, and perhaps to change their ways. And so Cancer, it's just very important to be aware of your own power. And also moon trine Saturn might indicate that relationships should be fairly satisfactory. They can be, provided they're taken seriously. It's not a weekend for sort of easygoing relationships where you get on with one person, you get on with another person, no commitment. It's not that kind of weekend. But if you take people seriously and you concentrate your energies on serious people who take you seriously, you take them seriously, they take you seriously, you understand people's attributes, and you give people respect, you're prepared to get advice, you're prepared to give advice, and you're ready to spend quality time with quality people, then things can be very satisfying, and also perhaps quite enlightening. With these planets in Pisces, we've got Sun, Saturn, Neptune, North Node in Pisces. It is a time to be looking at things at a new level. I know, Cancer, that you often believe that you're in the right, that you've got the answers, and I'm sure you have got all the answers, but that doesn't mean that there isn't scope for something else. Maybe you've missed something. Maybe you need to look at something from another viewpoint, and there are opportunities to see things in a different way, but in a manner that doesn't really compromise anything. And so, this underlines the fact, Cancer, that it's a powerful weekend, and I really do hope that you are able to make the most of it. Leo, there is a lot happening, and the Sun is getting a lot of attention at the moment. And of course, the Sun is your ruler. And if you look at what's happening to the Sun is starting to make a conjunction to Saturn. And at the beginning of next week, that Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to be exact. Also, the Sun is making a trine to Mars. And that Sun trine Mars is exact over the weekend. And so, Leo, you do have to take yourself seriously, and you have to realize that these are quite major astrological aspects. They could work in your favor, but they could work against you if you don't take them sufficiently seriously. Let's look at Sun trine Mars. Mars is quite an aggressive planet. It's quite energetic, but it's also the planet of war. And so Sun trine Mars might encourage you to push things too far, exaggerate, or you might feel that you're absolutely desperate to assert yourself anyway, and with Sun trine Mars, you could get yourself into trouble potentially with Sun trine Mars. And its matters are not helped by the fact that the Sun is making a conjunction to Saturn, and Saturn is about having to deal with responsibilities. Having to deal with the consequences of your actions, and bad actions could have bad consequences. That's one way of looking at it. On the other hand, if you understand what's happening, that it is a time when you shouldn't be desperate for attention. You shouldn't be desperate to put all your energy into one thing with reckless abandon. And if you instead take a cautious approach, and also a disciplined approach. Discipline matters. Sun conjunct Saturn, and you have to, be cautious, but that doesn't mean you can't be ambitious. You can want things to happen, but you also have to understand that things have to happen in a particular way. If you're in a hurry, then things almost inevitably are going to go wrong, and things could go badly wrong, and there is some risk over the weekend of some kind of accident or getting involved in something that you absolutely shouldn't be getting involved in. It would be unnecessary to get involved with, but you get involved with it anyway, and it doesn't go right. That I'm looking at things from sort of the worst possible scenario. It's absolutely unnecessary. If, Leo, you take a disciplined and responsible approach, you are always aware of how things can go wrong, then I think that it can be quite a good weekend. You'll be able to quietly get on with whatever you have to do. It's not a weekend where you should be looking for a load of attention, and it's also not a weekend where you should be looking for dramatic results, the kind of results that everyone recognizes. It's not that kind of weekend. And Leo can be a sign that likes having attention, and it's always good to get attention, but this weekend you shouldn't be craving attention. You should be doing things because you enjoy doing them, and also because you feel that they're necessary, and allow things to to work out at their own pace. And if you can just tune into the power of your feelings and your sensitivities, you'll understand how far to take things, and you'll know when you're reaching your limits. You'll know when you're moving onto dangerous ground, and then you can just back off and just get things back to normal. And so that's how the weekend can proceed. And also in terms of close relationships, the Sun is starting to make a conjunction to Saturn, and this Sun Saturn is a bit of a mixed blessing. Sun conjunct Saturn can be about a person who is not necessarily very sympathetic. That Saturn is someone maybe quite harsh and judgmental, and if that person is in your life, then you have to ask yourself, how are you going to approach them? Maybe it's not necessary to approach them. Maybe there's someone from the past, or maybe you have a choice. There are maybe a couple of people who fit that bill, are in some respects more mature than you, wiser than you, but also a little bit overbearing, and you have a choice about who you want to interact with and how you interact with them. And if you do make the decision over the next day or two, or indeed next couple of days as you move into next week, to spend a lot of time with one particular person, then just consider how you relate to them, because their influence on you may be quite saturnine, for better or for worse. Virgo, it needn't be a bad weekend. We've got a lot of activity in water signs, specifically Cancer and Pisces, and the weekend's activity may say a lot about other people, about your social life, who you're hanging out with, and there should be opportunities to meet people, be with people, understand them, and also relationships probably can't be avoided. After all, we've got a trine aspect between the Sun and Mars. So the Sun is in Pisces, your opposite sign, and it is in trine to Mars. So that Sun trine Mars might represent energetic people, and people who they get you going, they fire you up. They could be exciting, and you can enjoy their company. And if you're feeling on your own that things aren't really moving, that things are a little bit boring, then other people can certainly make things more interesting for you, and I think you can make things more interesting for them. When you want to be this weekend, you can actually be quite dynamic, and if you feel that things need to move faster, you have the opportunity to increase the pace, and it may be by just taking one or two definite actions, you can really get noticed, and in certain cases people will follow your lead. But following and leading are kind of two sides of the same coin. If you're able to follow, then you're also able to lead, and it's about understanding. It's a very watery weekend. There's a lot of sensitivity going on, picking up on how other people feel, they picking up on how you feel, and overall, it's probably just not a weekend to be spending on your own. I don't think that is a good idea. And also, you probably need to be a little bit careful about projection. There is a conjunction between the Sun and Saturn forming, and this Sun and Saturn it's not exact over the weekend, but it does become exact early next week. And this Sun conjunct Saturn may represent the perception of a heavy influence. You feel that someone has a lot of power and control over you. But is this really true, or is it just your projection? And, if you feel that you can't do everything you'd like to do, you might want to blame it on someone else. And you have to be realistic about other people's power. Don't give people more power than they actually have. Try to see them as human beings with strengths, but also with definite weaknesses. And if someone appears to be throwing their weight around, ask yourself why. Why do you have that impression? And why might another person be behaving as they are? It may be because they're concealing some kind of weakness. And over the weekend, I think you're going to have quite a good awareness of other people's weaknesses, and you should be able to work around them. Libra, this weekend you are maybe taking yourself quite seriously, more seriously than usual. We do have a conjunction between the Moon and Mars in Cancer. Cancer is a high-profile sign in the Libran horoscope, and this may say something about what your expectations are for the weekend, and you might regard it as being a weekend where you want to have an impact. You don't want to be ignored, or at the very least, you want to actually do something constructive, and you might then be quite ambitious, and you're aware of anything that might be holding you back, and you might also find that you want to get things right, and you kind of feel that you know how things should be, and if things aren't right, you could get annoyed. And that means, Libra, that you probably should be putting yourself in a position where you have as much control as possible, and don't give other people the opportunity to mess things up. You don't want to give them too much responsibility, or you don't want to necessarily tell them what you're doing, because if you tell people what you're doing, then that's inviting interference. And so it just may be a question of doing what's necessary. And also, in terms of other people, you may be surprisingly harsh, and that might happen if you're feeling yourself to be under pressure, or if someone disagrees with you. And the weekend starts with the Moon making a square to Mercury. That's how the weekend kicks off. So Moon square Mercury can be harsh words, and it may be you saying the harsh words because you're not getting your way. That is certainly a possibility. And as the weekend progresses, there are more possibilities for you saying things which could be cruel. You could be talking about things that other people don't want to talk about. You just feeling that you have to express your frustration or your annoyance, and through your choice of words, you could actually create a bad impression. And that might be just a good reason why you don't want to spend too much time with particular people, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're having a lot of conversation. You're talking about stuff, and the more you talk, the more you express your real feelings. And if you think that other people are wasting your time or in your way, then you might just be a little bit too hasty, and saying something or even doing something which is regrettable. And continuing on the theme of relationships, the Sun is making a trine to Mars. Now, I've kind of suggested that other people should be avoided, but does that mean that all other people should be avoided? Indeed, can other people be avoided with Sun trine Mars? Mars is a planet in the Libran horoscope, but is connected with relationships, connected with the other. And Sun trine Mars may represent a person in your life who is incredibly dynamic, more dynamic than you. And this weekend, in your own way, you are quite dynamic. And so it might represent a person who has to just be dealt with or handled. They could really work against you, but they could also work in your favor if you give them a chance. Do recognize some people's strengths and their ability to really make things happen. And we're not talking about everyone. Most people this weekend should probably be avoided, because I don't think they're going to be especially helpful. But there may be just one person, or maybe two people, probably just one person, who actually could be very dynamic and could actually help you get closer to the achievement of some of your desires. But you have to choose carefully. Most people are not going to be helpful, but there just may be one person who can really give you what you want, if you give them a chance, and if you you don't mess things up by rushing to a judgment. So this weekend, Libra, it is a little bit complicated, and you might decide you just want to keep it simple and avoid all other people. I mean, that's the best way of having a simple weekend. But I think if you avoided everyone, then you might be missing out on something. Scorpio, your sign is the empty sign, and I mean that in a positive sense. So if we look at the chart, what's happening? There's nothing in Scorpio. Okay, there might be an asteroid in Scorpio, or maybe a space station in Scorpio, but there is nothing in Scorpio in terms of major planets. And the other two water signs are quite active. Pisces has got Sun, Saturn node and Sun, Saturn node, North Node and Neptune in it, and Cancer has got Moon and Mars in it, and we have a Sun-Mars trine, Sun in Pisces, trine Mars in Cancer, and so that empty sign of Scorpio is being hit. It is being influenced. You are picking up on that energy. So in a way, there is a grand trine feel today, even though that grand trine on the surface isn't there. And that third corner, the third angle of the triangle, is Scorpio, and it is you. And so Scorpio, you have the opportunity to really pick up on the prevailing energies and use them, and be elevated by them, and it can be a exciting weekend, where things are moving, and they're moving emotionally. You have got strong feelings, and if you if you're with people, there is a lot happening, and also you just have a sense of what you can do, what you can create, what you can achieve. And if you really want something to happen with the sun making a trine to Mars, you can certainly make it happen, and it's going to be much easier than expected. It doesn't take much energy. I mean, it could be, it's like an avalanche. A small fall, a little bit of snow falls one place to another, one pebble falls and something else goes, and something else goes, and then something else goes, and there's a Scorpio avalanche going on. And you can create some avalanches. Or maybe, I suppose, as these water signs, maybe we're talking about tsunamis. I'm not quite sure how tsunamis get themselves together. It's often caused by an earthquake, but some small change can create something else, something which is much bigger. And that means, Scorpio, that you need to be delicate. You can always take more, but you can't take less. That's the issue, isn't it? Once you've started it, it's going to get it's so easily going to get out of control. So be delicate, and delicacy perhaps is a key word for the weekend. And also, don't forget the spiritual side of things. I don't really like to talk about spiritual stuff just for the sake of it, because the trouble about astrology and spirituality is that you can't be contradicted, you can't be falsified, because spirituality can be so vague, and you can tell everyone to be spiritual, and fine. People who watch astrology videos tend to be more spiritual, if there's such a thing as being more spiritual or more spiritually aligned than people watching other kinds of videos on sort of popular trash, whatever it is. But so it's easy to talk about spirituality, and it's just meaningless. But I'm serious. I think that this weekend can be genuinely spiritual for you, and you can tune into the spiritual value of what you're doing, and also what you've got. And that might mean that you have got certain abilities of a spiritual or intuitive nature that you actually now have a chance to use. And that means, if you've got psychic or intuitive abilities, then see what you can do with them. And so give yourself a chance. Don't be too questioning. And also, you may be quite good at detective work, trying to understand the truth of something, if it is being hidden. And a lot of stuff is getting hidden at the moment. People are playing all sorts of games. And, if anyone can get to the bottom of something and, use everything you've got to research something, to understand the underlying cause, the underlying motive, then you're going to be able to get some answers to your questions. But in the process, you might have to use, somewhat unconventional means. Now, one aspect that is starting to form is a conjunction between the Sun and Saturn. And, this Sun-Saturn conjunction, it's exact at the beginning of a week, and I'll be talking more about it when it does become exact. But this Sun-Saturn conjunction may be indicating that there is one thing that you are really good at, and I've already talked about your talents in a sort of fairly spiritual way, but this may not be anything spiritual. It may be just something you're really good at. Maybe it's your number one talent, it's the thing you are most good at. And it may be something that you are underestimating, but also over the next week, this is some ability you may really need. It may become really important to you. Do you know what it is? If you do know what it is, then perhaps you should work on it. And it may require a lot of concentration and a lot of discipline. I mean, it's no immediate hurry, but just be aware that this single ability, this single special ability, may become necessary, sooner rather than later. So perhaps you should work on it, and it could actually be useful in your career, or if you're applying for a job, or you're trying to get some business. It just may be something extra you've got that other people don't have. Sagittarius, you seem to be quite serious at the moment. It is a high energy weekend, but I'm wondering to what extent you want to get involved in this energy, whether you actually feel that it's relevant to you. And you may be of a view that you don't really want to be part of it. You understand what's going on. You've got a very good understanding of what's happening. And it may be that you're several steps ahead of the game. So it could be that the world is excited about things that you're very familiar with. And there may be even something a little bit jaded about it. You've seen it before. You know how it works out. And so because you've seen it before, and why would you want to bother with it? It's boring in the end. Again, it might seem interesting, but you know how it ends up. So why would you want to interact? And besides, you've got better things to do, and you need to think about yourself and making sure that everything is as clear as possible, because it's so easy to get confused, and it's also so easy to get angry. And one thing you don't want to do this weekend is get angry, because if you were to get angry, you wouldn't know what to do with this anger. It would just fester. It would manifest in the wrong way. And so you want to just stay away from anything or anyone that could conceivably make you annoyed. That's not something you want to get involved with. And so, in terms of other people, you are actually quite able to come over as being a warm and friendly person, but you don't want to get too close to any single person. You don't want to get involved in parties, people coming together. I don't think you'll be. I don't think you will be interested. And if you can just be, just slightly detached. I think I might have said that yesterday. A little bit of detachment, Sagittarius, might be a good idea. People like you, but just because people like you doesn't mean you have to spend time with them. Just because you can make people feel good about themselves doesn't mean you have to spend time with them. You do what you can, and then you move on, or not just move on, you move back. You might sort of make the occasional social foray over the weekend. You try to be friendly, but only for a few minutes, and then you just go back into your shell. Now, going back into your shell is not something that one would normally associate with a Sagittarian. This is Cancer Scorpio language. But at the moment, maybe you have some similarity to a Cancer or a Scorpio. With Mars in Cancer, Moon in Cancer, and why would you want to take risks? Because again, you know how people are, you know how people behave, you know what they're like, and so you don't want to do anything careless. And also, things are intense. They are. They're very intense. You know how intense they are, and so Sagittarius. Why would you want to take any risks? Capricorn. The Sun is starting to make a conjunction to Saturn, and this conjunction is exact in a few days' time, beginning of next week, and it may be having some influence on you. It's possibly starting to make you come over as being more serious than usual. You might not think that you're being serious, but maybe you are, and that might be how people are perceiving you. And also there's a question of how you perceive other people. When you look at what they're doing and what they're saying and their attitudes, you might actually be somewhat disappointed. You'd hoped for more, and it just occurs to you that just some people are stuck in the past. They don't want to change, and you're asking yourself, what is the point? And that may say something about how you give advice or you tell people things. You can do it. You can be very sensible. You've got lots of great things to say, but is anyone listening to you at the moment? And I'm not saying that no one is listening to you. It just may be that over the weekend and maybe into the beginning of next week, you just might feel that it is quite difficult to get your message across, even though you are trying very hard. And arguably other people are important at the moment, because the Moon and Mars are making a conjunction right now in Cancer, your opposite sign, and so other people can't be avoided, but their attitude might be irritating. And if you are forced to spend a lot of time with people, it just might feel really very unsatisfactory. So, what do you do about the situation? Well, I think it's just best to keep going. It's important not to give up on anyone. It's easy to give up on people. They don't seem to be very mature in many cases. They're not listening. And, maybe Capricorn, it's just a question of, saying the same message, over and over again. And at first you might be ignored, but if you keep trying to say the same thing, then eventually what you say might hit home. And also some people are going to have an impact on you, for better or for worse. That is going to happen with this Moon-Mars conjunction. And there may be at times a certain sense of annoyance. Who's going to get annoyed with who? There's certainly plenty of scope for you getting annoyed with other people, but at the same time, some people might find you frustrating because you're not appearing to give much away. You know that you can't give much away because there's no point, but this just might indicate a general communication mismatch, and it just may be a question just of going with it and asking yourself what is important, and not taking things too seriously. I mean, you need to take things quite seriously, but don't go over the top. And with the Sun moving towards this conjunction of Saturn, you could say that Saturn is moving into combustion. I mean, normally when we think about combustion, we think of Mercury, but Saturn can be combust, and the Sun can be quite a difficult energy. And so, with the Sun moving towards a conjunction of Saturn, you just might feel that something is starting to pressurize you, and it's taking up more of your time and your energy, and it may just be a feeling that things are complicated, and over the next few days things might just feel more complicated, and it might have an administrative nature, or something to do with paperwork or documentation, rules, laws, what you can do, what you can't do, and that might be taking up a lot of your time. So it might not just be other people; it's just the complications of living, of doing business, of contracts. It just could make things difficult, but you mustn't be overwhelmed by it. In fact, there's no need to be overwhelmed by it. You just have to give things your complete attention. And once you're able to give the important things your complete attention over the next few days, you will, I think, be able to get to grips with things pretty quickly. And also, the moon is making a trine to Saturn, and the moon trine Saturn, it's a fortunate aspect, and it can relate to other people. And so it might be over the weekend, in spite of many difficulties, many incompatibilities, at some stage you are able to get through to someone and make the right connection, and also convince someone that you can be taken seriously and that you should be taken seriously. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it can be done. And so don't give up on other people. And in the end, you might be pleasantly surprised by someone's response to you. Aquarius, you probably feel that it might all be a little bit disappointing. It's not personal. It's just that when you look around you, you perhaps take the view that just things could be better. And this especially applies to other people. I mean, other people, you had expectations, but are they really matching them? Probably not. And it might be the case that simply you are ahead of them, you're faster than them, and they just can't see things that you see, and they're stuck in their own ways, and they're refusing to change, and you're really wondering whether it's really worth it. And so you do actually have a similar experience to Capricorn. I don't know whether you listen to what I was saying for Capricorns, but both Aquarius and Capricorns do have the same ruler, which is Saturn. So at some level they have similar experiences, not the same experiences, because Aquarius and Capricorn are different signs. Aquarius is a positive sign; it's an air sign. Capricorn is an earth sign. So there are differences, but both you and Capricorn are feeling a bit of pressure, and there is a lot of possibilities here for just being disappointed. And you completed your side of the bargain, but other people, not always. They're just refusing to change. even though they know what to do, they're just not doing it. And while all this is happening, the Sun is starting to make a conjunction to Saturn, and this Sun-Saturn conjunction is not exact over the weekend, but it's going to be exact early next week. And this Sun-Saturn conjunction might have something to do with relationships. And it might not be so bad, actually, because the Sun may be representative of another person. Sun rules Leo, and they are coming your way. You're getting closer to someone. And the question then is, how do you occur to them? And you can actually be quite a heavy influence, particularly now. You come over as being a serious person, and you can be perceived as being quite difficult, as someone who may even be judgmental. And so do ask yourself that, particularly if you're dealing with people who are sort of younger than you, who don't have your wisdom and responsibility. You might come over as an authority figure, and indeed, if you are an authority figure, whether it's in the home or at work, you're certainly going to have an influence. People are going to be very aware of that, and it may be you can utilize this to actually show your authority, show that you're in control, and you don't have to be unpleasant. You just have to have this just air of serious confidence. If you want to have that image, you can, especially when it comes to money. Money at the moment could be important for the average Aquarian, at least more important than usual. Money has been an on and off issue since the beginning of 2023, when Saturn went into Pisces, and now we've got a lot of stuff in Pisces. We've got a Sun-Saturn conjunction coming up, and with this Sun-Saturn conjunction, you might feel that you want to sort things out financially, and you might have expectations of other people financially. Now, I've said that it's going to be very difficult for people to match your expectations, but still, it might be a good time to make your feelings clear. And again, that's especially the case if you have any position of authority. If you want to tell people what to do financially, or if you want to take people to task, say, you have been making a financial mistake, you need to get yourself together, you need to pay for this, you're not paying for this, whatever it is. And if you want to do that, you can make people feel very small, but in the end, they will listen to you. They might not listen to you this weekend. It's going to be quite difficult to get through to people this weekend. But, in the end, I think that they will understand that you are serious, and you will be able to get your way. And, it's all about things happening according to your plans, not anyone else's plans. Pisces, your sign, Pisces, is emphasized this weekend. We have a lot of activity in Pisces. We also have quite a lot of activity in Cancer, because we've got Moon-Mars conjunction in Cancer, and we've got the Sun in Pisces making a trine to Mars in Cancer. So that does give you a certain amount of energy. You are able to make things happen, but also you're able to control what happens, because the Sun is making a conjunction to Saturn in your sign, and also the Sun is making that trine to Mars. So there is that relationship between Sun, Saturn, and Mars, which is quite strong. over the course of a weekend. So if there's anything you want to happen, then this weekend you should really have no difficulty asserting yourself. And in the process, try not to get too closely involved with any one person. Have a certain objectivity to you. You can do it. Your people skills are good. You can bring people together. You can get closer to people. That's true. But you don't want to get too close to anyone, because if you get too close to one person, that might close opportunities elsewhere. And you want to be friends with everyone, and you don't want to get emotionally involved. Even if you are around people who you have been emotionally involved with in the past, maybe you'll be emotionally involved with them again in the future. But this weekend, there needs to be a certain objectivity and an emotional distance, without being cold or aloof. Just a bit of distance, Pisces, would just make things a lot easier for you. And also, it's a weekend that is about you. You can pay people some attention, but you can't pay them a lot of attention, because it's you and what you want that matter. And also this Sun trine Mars aspect it is dynamic, and it allows you to really enjoy yourself, but enjoy yourself at a higher level, in a way that is just an intrinsic part of who you are. And you want to feel a great sense of satisfaction that you're doing the right thing, that you're doing something that is tailor-made for you. And it's certainly not a weekend for spending ages on other people's plans, worrying about other people. It's not that kind of weekend. It's a weekend where you have your priorities, and you can actually be very serious about these priorities, and these priorities will become increasingly important as you move into next week, as that Sun-Saturn conjunction becomes exact, as you come over as a serious person, and you therefore need to be taken seriously, and you should demand to be taken seriously. But I don't think you have to make demands, because at a certain stage, people will understand the kind of person you are. They'll know what you're they'll know what they're dealing with, and they'll know what your expectations are. And those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. And I now want to look at the weekend from the viewpoint of the I Ching. So I asked the question, what is the weekend going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 59, which is dispersion. Dispersion represents the floods. I'm not saying it's literally going to be a flood, but it can be about rainstorm, things being turned upside down, the water level going up a lot. And because there's a lot of water, there's a lot of movement, and things can happen really quickly. And we might feel a sense of being completely overwhelmed by the whole thing, and it might be there might be a sense of danger. I mean, there is going to be a sense of danger, isn't there, if there's a flood, if there is a major storm, and there's water everywhere, things are moving quickly, we're losing touch with everything, and there may be a requirement on your part. The moment things start to get complicated, and things could get complicated very quickly at the beginning of a weekend, something just happens. Of course, we have to localize this. Just remember This I Ching reading is just for 2 days. I do just for the weekend. I pretty much do my I Ching readings every day, so you can't have every day being dramatic. And it just may be that some aspect of your life is a little bit difficult to define, is not working as expected, and you have to do something. And what you have to do is potentially take action to prevent things getting out of control. And this is something you can do, and you are going to be supported. And what are you going to be supported by? The I Ching says that you're going to be supported by your horse. You're riding a strong horse. And because you're riding a strong horse, this horse can take you through. And I don't know what this horse represents. I don't know whether you're planning on horse riding over the weekend. You're probably not. But a strong horse may represent yourself. It may represent some aspect of you, a sort of a hidden strength that manifests in a crisis, and in a process you have the capacity to help people, even rescue people. And maybe that's what it's about. It may not be about you. It may be someone who is floundering, and you do have the opportunity to step in and make things better, or rescue them before the full disaster strikes. So that's the bottom line moving. Then the third line moves, and this third line is talking about being swept away. Well, yeah, on some level you are going to be swept away, but the I Ching says it's not a problem. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to cause any harm, and it's just about a situation where you have to forget about your ego, forget about yourself, and just do what is right. And one interpretation is you are dissolving yourself into something higher for the greater good. Now, I'm not talking about some great sort of aspect of great a sacrifice, or going out in a boat to rescue people in a shipwreck or anything like that. It's about just forgetting your own ego for a moment, because there is some higher requirement, and you do it, and you do what is necessary, and there's no harm. You get your way. I mean, or rather, the universe gets its way. It's not about you getting your way, because that suggests an ego at work. It's about doing what you have to do, and if you do what you have to do, it seems that you will save the situation and create the possibility of some real improvement. So it seems dramatic, dispersion and the flood, but in the end, you have the opportunity to act in a correct way, and you should be able to sort things out. And because we've got two moving lines, that means we move to a second hexagram, and the hexagram we move to is hexagram number 9, which is the taming part of the small. This is a much calmer hexagram than the previous one, and it's asking us to take it slowly, the taming part of the small. It also talks about dense clouds, no rain, contrasting with the previous hexagram, which is about a flood. The second hexagram, dense clouds, no rain. It seems that the catastrophic potential of whatever that chaos was starts to diminish, and we do need to take it slowly. The taming part of the small. The small can be someone who needs someone that needs to be tamed. A person who is maybe involved in things which are trivial, things that don't really amount to much, but they're just making a lot of activity, and that activity is not being very productive, and that just has to be closed down. And we should be just satisfied with small steps. And this may apply more to Sunday, because as it's a weekend, it may be that Saturday is the drama, and then Sunday things are starting to calm down. There are things we'd like to do. We perhaps feel that we're looking back at the past and we need to completely resolve the situation. We need to make things like they were before, but we needn't worry about that. It's just about having some self-restraint and not assuming that things can be done immediately. We can perhaps wait until next week. And now I want to look at the main aspect of the weekend, which is a trine between the Sun and Mars. So here is the trine, the exact moment that the exact moment of the Sun trine Mars. So this actually happens on Saturday at 5:13 a.m. in London. So this is right at the beginning of a weekend. And in fact, if you're in California, the Sun trine Mars will be late on Friday. Would be, what would that be? That would be at 9:13 in the evening on Friday. But I nonetheless think that this Sun trine Mars does say something about the weekend. And so Sun trine Mars, it's not an unusual aspect. It happens at least once a year, and it is quite high energy because the Sun and Mars are, they're masculine planets. They're quite fiery planets, and they want action, they demand action. So when you put the Sun and Mars together, you get the concept of things moving quickly, perhaps too quickly. And that is perhaps a warning about the weekend. So if you are involved in anything to do with exerting energy, if you put too much energy into something, it could get out of control. Or if you're using machinery, you have to be very careful with machinery. Perhaps you should avoid using machinery unless you really know what you're doing. The power button might be too high. So if you're forced to use any kind of machinery, always start at low. Whatever you're doing, start at low. Don't start at high or medium level. Or even if you're buying a vacuum cleaner, you don't know how strong it is, and you're using a vacuum cleaner for the first time. Just always start at the lowest level, whatever you're doing. It's not just about machinery. It's about social interaction. If you feel something has to be done, you just may not need as much energy as you think you do. And it may even indicate, maybe something like cooking. I don't know anything about cooking, but if you're putting salt or spices into something, you might put too much in. There's always too much of something with moon trine Mars. Of course, Mars, from a culinary perspective, does represent hot food. Things like curry. I think in traditional astrology, radishes are ruled by Mars because radishes have sort of a tangy taste, and so it can be quite a fortunate aspect if we handle it in the right way. So if it's something we want to do, something we have to do, we can actually make it happen, and it just is not going to need as much energy as we thought. And this Sun-Mars trine should not be seen in isolation, because Pluto is involved with it. And so Pluto is at, where's Pluto gone? Pluto's at 3 degrees Aquarius. So we actually have a Sun semisquare Pluto. So Sun semisquare Pluto can be quite a power-orientated aspect. It can represent putting a little bit of energy into something and getting a huge result. That is the nature of Pluto. Pluto is something very, very small. It's a tiny planet. I mean, it's now been downgraded to a minor planet. When was that? Sort of, was it 2007, something like that? It got downgraded to a minor planet. But, in astrology, it represents something very small that can be very dramatic. And so we've got that Sun semisquare Pluto. And the issue of power could be important. Now, Sun, Pluto, and Mars, they all come together on the 24th harmonic. So why the 24th harmonic? Because Sun trine Mars, that represents the number 3. And so Sun square, semisquare Pluto represents the number 8. So what is the lowest number where both 3 and 8 go into it? Well, the answer is the lowest number is 24. And if we take this chart, Sun trine Mars, there's Sun, Mars, and Pluto. So they're in different places. So if I take the positions of each planet and I turn it into absolute longitude, I don't measure it according to the signs, I just measure it to where it is absolutely. So in terms of absolute longitude, for example, Mercury is at 6 Aries, Uranus is at 50, Mercury's not at 6 Aries, Mercury is just at 6. Uranus would say, for example, be at 53, Jupiter would be at 72, and so forth. So if we reduce all the planets to absolute longitude and we multiply them by 24, and then we keep subtracting 360 until it's below 360, and we convert back to the signs, and we get the 24th harmonic chart. So let's just look at the 24th harmonic chart, just so I can show you what I mean. So let's just change that into a harmonic chart and put in a number 24. So there is a harmonic chart, and you can see that the Sun, Mars, and Pluto are all together. So we have a 24th harmonic conjunction there. So at some level, Sun, Mars, Pluto are coming together, and that does represent a huge amount of power. And it may be a hidden power, but it's a very real power, and it may say something about some of the events of the weekend. Maybe in terms of the news, it may say something about what's happening in our lives. The issue of power is substantial over the course of a weekend. Who has power? Who doesn't have power? Who is using power? And the idea that power that is directed and focused can actually get huge results. Now, many of these results could be bad, and we have to look at what's happening in the news, especially beginning of a weekend. When that Sun, Mars, Pluto conjunction on the 24th harmonic is exact. So could be quite a dangerous influence, and I thought that I would look at a few events in the past to just illustrate the kind of things that can happen when the Sun is trine Mars. Though I did want to look at one person very briefly, someone in the news who's been getting a certain amount of negative press, is Kemi Badenoch. So Kemi Badenoch is the leader of the British Conservative Party, and she is under a lot of pressure, and it's felt that she's not being very effective in Prime Minister's question time. And Kemi Badenoch has a certain reputation for being somewhat aggressive, for sort of assuming a conflict. And that could be a Sun-Mars thing. And so looking at Kemi Badenoch's horoscope, I don't have Kemi Badenoch's time of birth, but she has the Sun in Capricorn, trine Mars in Virgo. In fact, she's got the Sun trine Jupiter, Sun trine Mars. And so, with her Jupiter in Gemini and Mars Jupiter in Gemini, there may be a certain tendency on her part Mars Jupiter in Virgo. Sorry, did I say Gemini? I meant Virgo. There's a Mars Jupiter conjunction in Virgo, putting a lot of energy into things which are trivial or not worth bothering with. So recently Kemi Badenoch got into real trouble because the Reform Party was just announcing that they'd got a huge membership and that their membership was going to exceed that of the Conservative Party. And she just went into it and said that these figures are not right. And she just picked this fight that was just completely unnecessary and really damaged her reputation in quite a big way. So in Kemi Badenoch's case, well, I think the Sun-Mars trine, actually she's got a grand trine if you throw in Chiron. She's got a grand trine in the earth signs, Sun, Jupiter, Mercury. That might be that she puts a lot of energy into something and gets quite wounded by it. And so obviously if you're the leader of the opposition, you've got to be aggressive, and she's quite capable of being aggressive and being assertive, and that's a good thing up to a point. But in this case, in her chart, her Sun-Mars trine may not be working particularly well. And yeah, a lot of people are suggesting that her leadership is not working, is coming to an end. But I don't know about that. Who's going to replace her? Are they going to be able to do a better job for her? It's tough being leader of the Conservative Party at the moment, particularly if you have got reform breathing down your neck. So what I want to do, following that, is just to look at some events where the Sun was trine Mars. I'm not going to look at many events, just a few things, just to give us a flavour of Sun trine Mars. So there was the death of Jamal Khashoggi. So Jamal Khashoggi was this Saudi-born journalist who the Saudi regime didn't like him. They didn't like what he was reporting. I think he was American-based, and he was in Turkey, and he went into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and he didn't come out alive. So he went to a consulate to fix his papers, and they killed him. And this is the approximate time for when Khashoggi went into the consulate, and so here the Sun was at 9 degrees Libra, and Mars was at 9 degrees Aquarius. So it wasn't an exact trine, but it does give us a flavour of the event, and perhaps not just from a perspective of him, but also the perspective of those who killed him and those who ordered his killing. Sun trine Mars seems to be in the Saudi government. So Sun trine Mars using force, using power, and just going over the top. And that does illustrate what can happen when Sun trine Mars gets completely out of control. You do stuff which is just stupid, destructive. In this case, it's just evil. Whatever you think of Jamal Khashoggi, to just kill someone because they just need to go into a consulate to sort out their papers. I think his wife was waiting outside. It was a real Sun-Mars event. And another person who was attacked at the time of a Sun-Mars trine was Alexei Navalny. So Alexei Navalny was an opposition leader in Russia, who was attacking Putin, and he was on a plane, or I think he was in. He was attacked with nerve gas, and it didn't kill him, but it was a major news story, and he had to be sent to Germany to get over the damage, and then he went back. He went back to Russia, got arrested, sent to prison, and he died in prison. And so that's Alexei Navalny's horoscope. Important point about Navalny's horoscope is that he has there's Navalny's chart. He has his midheaven at 27 Gemini, and that's relevant in terms of looking at what was going on with the Mars when he was attacked. So here's a chart for when when Navalny was poisoned. I don't know exactly when it happened, but at the time he was poisoned, Mars was at 25 Aries, and the Sun was at 27 Leo. So there was a Sun-Mars trine. So again, like with Khashoggi, someone is attacked with really inappropriate effort. It's done in a public way. Everyone sees what's happened, and it is all just embarrassing all round. Aside from the fact that someone is getting killed in Khashoggi's case, poisoned by nerve gas of all things in Navalny's case, and looking at Navalny's transits when this attack happened. So got Navalny's chart in the middle, and on the outer wheel we have the positions at the time of this attack, and he has an ascendant, a midheaven of 2739 Gemini, because unusually for many Russian births we don't have a time of birth, or it's very difficult to know what the time of birth is, but for Navalny we do have a time of birth. And so he was born at 2 PM, I think, back in Butin, which I think is close to Moscow. And so the midheaven is at 27 Gemini, and at the time of the attack, the Sun was exactly sextile his midheaven, and the Mars was pretty close to the sextile of his midheaven. So that Sun-Mars was hitting his midheaven, and it was also hitting his node, because he has got the North Node exactly on the midheaven. So in a way, this attack was, I should say, part of his destiny, because what this attack did was it threw him into the limelight. After that attack, everyone around the world had heard of Alexei Navalny. And if you are a critic of the Russian regime, you could say, well, it highlighted the iniquities of Russia and the iniquities of Putin's rule. If you're an opponent of the Russian regime, of course, we don't know what happened, why they used Novichok, why they used some sort of sinister way to kill someone. There are many ways to kill someone, but why use nerve gas? But anyway, that Sun-Mars trine, which is the attack, was really hitting Navalny. It was hitting Navalny's midheaven. It was hitting his North Node, and it threw him into the limelight. So that's how this attack worked. And you might want to start a war with Sun trine Mars. And so here is a chart of the beginning of the 6-day war. So the 6-day war was a war in which Israel took on its neighbors, and the first thing Israel did at the beginning of the war was it attacked the air force of all its neighbors and just destroyed everything. The Egyptian Air Force was just destroyed in, I don't know, a very short period of time. It happened, I think, at 7:45 a.m. Tel Aviv time. And it was considered to be a very effective attack, and the war completely worked in Israel's favor. And so at the time, the Sun was applying to a trine of Mars. The Moon was also in Taurus, and of course, Israel is a Taurean country, and it declared its independence when the Sun was in Taurus. And of course, Israel is very much about the earth. Haaretz, isn't that what it is? I mean, not that I can speak Hebrew, but I can't. But I think that what they say, the earth. That's very much about what Israel is about. And so there's a moon in Taurus, which is kind of good. And yeah, so the sun is trine Mars, and that it does perhaps indicate a successful attack, even though Mars is in Libra. You think Mars in Libra, you'd be thinking Mars is in its detriment. So would you really want to launch an attack when Mars was in its detriment in Libra? Well, maybe you might, if Mars is in mutual reception by exaltation with Saturn. So Mars is in the exaltation, by sign and exaltation. So Saturn is in Mars's sign in Aries. Mars is in Saturn's exaltation. So the Mars and Saturn were in mixed exaltation. So that might have given Mars a little bit of dignity, but still Mars was in its detriment. But nonetheless, this attack was clearly very successful. And one final attack, or not really an attack, it was a mass murder that took place when the Sun was trine Mars, was the Valentine's Day massacre, which took place on February the 14th, 1929. It was probably ordered by Al Capone and rival gang. I can't remember the details, but a lot of people were just lined up against the wall and shot in Chicago. And here is the time for the Valentine's Day massacre. And the Valentine's Day massacre had Sun trine Mars. And so, association here between people getting killed, people getting attacked, and Sun trine Mars. So, it's not a good aspect if you're on anyone's hit list. And this Sun trine Mars, you might say, well, it's not exact. The Sun was actually separating from the trine to Mars, but we had something else going on. At the time of the Valentine's Day massacre, Mars was opposition Saturn. Again, not a particularly exact opposition between Mars and Saturn. So it was sort of 5-6 degrees apart. So what was happening was the Sun had made the sextile to Mars and was made the trine to Mars, and then it was moving on to the sextile of Saturn. Additionally, the moon was trine the Sun, and if you read if you listen to my forecast, when I say Sun trine Mars, I always talk about harmony, and I'm always pretty positive about Sun Mars trine. Between Sun Moon sextiles and Sun Moon trines. But in this case, it seems that the Moon Sun sextile was benefiting the attacker. It just happened very quickly and well. I won't say well, but the aim was to kill a lot of people. And it certainly succeeded in terms of killing a lot of people. And that goes back to what I was saying with Sun trine Mars. You put a little bit of energy into something and it just gets out of control. You cause a lot of damage very quickly. Maybe that works in your favor, as we saw with the Israeli attack on the Egyptian Air Force, for example. Sun trine Mars made sure that they just was able to basically completely wipe it out. I think they wiped out the Syrian Air Force as well, very, very quickly. That's how Sun trine Mars can work. And with the Valentine's Day massacre, we are seeing sextiles and trines at work here, and we might want to look at sextiles and trines to midpoints, or indeed semi-sextiles to midpoints. So if you look at Mars and Saturn, you can see that the Sun is making a semi-sextile to the Mars-Saturn midpoint, and we can see this if we set up a 90-degree dial for that, but not a 90-degree dial. We set up a 30-degree dial. So this is a dial that just shows that is a 30-degree dial anyway. So you can see that the Sun, if you look at the Mars-Saturn midpoint, where's the Mars-Saturn midpoint? There is the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So you can see that the Sun is making the semi-sextile to the Mars-Saturn midpoint, and the node is quite close there as well. So Sun on the Mars-Saturn midpoint on a 30-degree dial, that is a classic signature of death and destruction. And so it's quite interesting the way the trines and the sextiles work, the way you have had that Mars-Saturn opposition with Saturn trine sextiling it, and it allowed this massacre to work. A lot of people were killed. So that gives you an idea about Sun trine Mars. I think it's quite a dangerous aspect, and it makes it easy for things to get out of hand, and is easy to destroy a lot of things, or I'm afraid a lot of people, very quickly. And so on a personal level, we do have to be careful how we go with Sun trine Mars, and it's not a time for taking risks or do anything which could get out of control, or playing with guns, dangerous machinery, because we mustn't underestimate what we're dealing with. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, I'd be super grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the description, and I will talk to you again very soon.